Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So in tonight's album review, I'm tackling the second album from the tech death band Aethereus and their album Leiden, released on the 14th of January via Artisan Era. The album is 8 tracks and 55 minutes long. And what we often see with tech death bands are these outstanding displays of musicianship, and sometimes it can be bewildering as a first-time listener, or if you're new to technical death metal, to kind of get used and acclimatized with that sort of wildly kind of ambitious and often dense kind of a sound. And whilst you do get that here with this album, there is a lot that kind of feels like it glues the album together. Some memorable moments in particular, some, really kind of great riffing and memorable riffs. Also some really beautifully, melodic guitar solos, which aren't just there, I feel like, as showmanship. They are well placed. And the melodic guitar solos actually are one of the highlights for me on this album, reminding me of the way that Inferi used their guitar solos to great effect. Instead of just being for showmanship, these guitar solos are really, really impressive throughout this entire album. I'd also like to point out that the interesting classical moments and sections to this album, I think, also enhance the album, as opposed to, sometimes I feel like symphonic in metal can sort of sometimes feel a bit sort of like it kind of works against the music instead of in favour of it. Sometimes you just prefer that bludgeoning sound. But here, the classical moments aren't sort of affecting the sound in a negative way. I think they're used to create more anticipation before you move into the heavier moments, which is kind of how I often like that aspect of using classical sections in music. In particular, I would point to the kind of choral voices I think that you get kind of towards the end of the track name is Shrouded Kaleidoscopic Skin. God, that was a mouthful. And then you kind of get plunged into that really ferocious, uncompromising track, which is Behold the World Eater, which follows on from the Shrouded in Kaleidoscopic Skin. I've got to say that again. Shrouded Kaleidoscopic Skin. Which is, and also a pretty cool track. The track, though, which really I loved on this album was Endless Cycle of Rebirth. And that kind of had the crushing kind of groove to it, if you like, crushing memorable riffs in it. Slightly more visceral, so like one of the slightly more easier to digest kind of songs perhaps on the album, which is probably why I love it so much. Perhaps there's a kind of even a jazzy section towards the end, and some interesting piano moments too, where I feel like they purposely choose those kind of weird piano chords to give you a kind of sense of unease before you kind of move on to the next stage of the album, which I kind of liked as well. All sorts of little nuggets like that, but they don't feel forced. And I think that's the kind of majesty of this album, is that everything is kind of nicely glued together. It doesn't feel overwhelming. And as I say, that is often the sense I can get from some tech death albums, which is, in spite of their amazing wizardry and their amazing talents, you can be put off sometimes if it's just overwhelmingly like that. And as I say, this album has so many of those little nuggets and good moments that it's not overwhelming for me, at least as a listener. And I really do, as I say, really enjoyed that. A couple of other shout-outs for a couple of other tracks I really, really liked. So, Behold the World Eater was one of those. The Living Abyss has one of those wonderful melodic guitar solos I was talking about earlier in the review, which is nice and long as well. Sometimes guitar solos are too short for me, and I like the fact this you get space here for this guitar solo, and that it accompanies the progressions nicely too. So, fantastic moment in that track, The Living Abyss. As a whole, I kind of enjoyed that track. It's a bit of a break from the more bludgeoning parts of this album. That was fantastic too. So thoroughly enjoying this album so far. And even to the end, I think the closing track, Upon Infinite Sea, was maybe one of the tracks where I was slightly more lost, just because it felt there were so many sequences to that track. I almost kind of was like struggling just to keep up. But again, a really bold finish to the album. And again, one of those brilliant guitar solos just to cap off what was a really impressive album for me. I have to say, still got plenty of albums to come this year, but this feels like it's one of those early contenders that could feature on my end of year list for sure. I mean, the last two albums have also had good scores from me, but I'm going to give this album a 9 out of 10, a glowing score for this one. Really, really fabulous stuff. And it's a tech death album. And as I say, I don't always enjoy tech death, but this one is definitely one I think I can see myself coming back to quite a bit in the future. Otherwise, thanks as always, guys, for watching. Do feel free to drop a like and subscribe if you like these kind of album reviews, lists, or sci-fi, fantasy, and horror stuff I sometimes do on the side of the channel as well. Otherwise, from me, before I do say bye for now, actually, I just want a quick note at the end of the video, a quick update, if you like, actually, that my next video probably isn't going to be until next Monday. I'm doing one of my kind of return trips to see family and friends this coming weekend, and I don't think I'm going to fit in many videos prior to that either for the rest of this week, but I will be back hopefully with more videos pretty soon, including my top 20 albums of 2020, which is going to be a revamped and revised list from which was my first ever video on the channel, which was just the top 10. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all as well. That I am planning for the 29th of January if you're interested, so be around for that list video coming fairly soon to you then. Otherwise, from me, take care everybody, bye for now.